everybody doing today? So this morning, we want to talk about Jesus' comments in Luke 22, verse 15, where he says, I have earnestly desired to eat with you. And so I've really enjoyed the opportunity that we've gotten to see lots of different people give the Lord's Supper message. From Andy and his 7 points, I think it was. Drew talking about certainty and fear of snakes and spiders, which made me think of Queena. Elias having birds come in and eat his food. Mike, Patrick, Grant, many others that we've got to hear from. It's been just a good experience, and we really appreciate the elders putting that in place. And you're kind of preparing for these talks. It's a little bit difficult, right? Because I think AR and I were talking one time. He said, man, a 5-minute talk is one of the hardest things to prepare for, right? Because you're trying to condense everything down, not trying to be long-winded. You're trying to be on point. Mark Dwain is one of my favorite authors, and he said, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one, right? And so any of you that have ever prepared to give a presentation can relate to that. Now think about Jesus and his masterful reduction of all the law and the prophets into love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And it's just an excellent example of how you can take something that could go on and on forever, but just really boil it down to its simplest components. So Adam was given a sermon back in the middle of July, and he had a picture of a sunset up on the screen. And it just made me think about some things in life that you may want to share them with other people, but they're kind of just for you, right? Some experiences that you have. I could probably relate to that with Chip. There's things I see Chip do. For y'all that don't know, that's my wiener dog, Chip. He goes pretty much everywhere with me, and I'll see him do things that are playful or entertaining, and I thought, man, I wish Dory could see that, but it's just for me, right, because we're there. I've had the same experiences when I've kind of put myself in difficult situations. Maybe I'm out walking, and it's in the rain or in the snow, or I'm out in the woods by myself, and there's things that happen or there's things that you experience, and they're just for you. And that sunset picture that you put up kind of reminded me of that. I've seen some really remarkable things out in nature when I was just by myself. Of course, as technology's evolved and we've got phones and people post everything, we can oftentimes even miss the experience of it because we're too busy trying to capture it. So, but these things that are just for you, I was thinking about Jesus, and as he's sharing that he has earnestly desired to share this meal with his brethren there that have been doing this work with him. And he knows what's coming as he's going, but he is earnestly desiring to share this meal. And as much as he might want to share that experience with them in certain ways, they just really can't understand the gravity of what's about to happen and what's going on. And that leads me to thinking about our experiences here as we come back together. The consistency that we come, a lot of times when I'm talking to folks and they're asking about, well, where do you go to church and what do you guys do there? And they talk about taking the Lord's Supper on a regular basis, and they're often asked questions about that, right? And to think about, for me, in my own personal experience, some of the consistency of coming back to the cross every week. There's a grounding in that for me that apart from all the other scriptural reasons or other reasons that you could have, that just return to the cross and thinking about Jesus and that connection. And that can be, in your life you may describe it as consistency or cadence or momentum. Megan might give you an example like, hey, consistency is a lot better than intensity. She was like, baking a turkey at 1 hour for 900 degrees is not the same as baking it at 3 hours for 300 degrees, right? So the consistency of returning to the cross on a weekly basis, and how is that experience for you personally? Is that something that has become routine? Is it something that's kind of mundane? Is it something that you earnestly desire and you look forward to? And for me personally, there's some things that I can use to that seem to be real effective. Songs are something that I can go to, or I can go to certain scriptures and I can read them, and it seems to be able to help me get my mind in a place. The distractions that follow us in from the outside, they're so easy to get in and try to interrupt our thoughts, try to interrupt what we're doing. But we really want to think about what is the purpose of why we're doing this every week. Why are we setting aside this time? What is it that our focus should be on, and what is our purpose? And we can go from sadness and just thinking about what Jesus went through. We can go to joy and thinking about the hope and the reconciliation that we get from this. I think a lot of times of the song, He Loved Me So. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Probably most of us always sing it, or you could probably sing it without the book, right? It's just in your head. But why did my Savior come to earth? Because He loved me so. And I think through that, and I actually get to thinking, well, it's not because He loved me so. He loves me so, right? He still loves me, continues to love me and pursue me. Come Break the Bread, or Come Share the Lord, is a song that was actually almost like a sign to me when I came to this congregation. When I moved to North Carolina in 2004, visited different congregations in Salisbury area and was looking, and the congregation that I had really grew up in the church, went away from the church, and when I went back as an adult, the architecture was the same, which after going to several churches, I found out this is pretty common. But at that time, I hadn't been in a whole lot of churches that looked that way. And at that congregation, we had sang, Come Share the Lord. And that song just really touched me so much. You know, Jesus is here with us. He breaks the bread. The one who pours the cup is risen from the dead. But as I've gone on through the years, one of the lines in that song that really, really just strikes a nerve with me is that finding our forgiveness here, we in turn forgive all wrongs. And we think about the publican and the sinner, and you know, just, I'm sure that you have songs, and I'm sure that you have scriptures and verses, and you have experiences in your life that as you're coming here and you're trying to return to the cross, that you're trying to have communion with Jesus, and you're trying to put that focus and just get rid of the distractions. I'd like you to think about what is it that in your memory or your experiences helps you to come to the cross and have that focus. And really the question is, do we earnestly desire the way that Jesus did to eat this meal? Is this something that, and I know it's not the Passover meal. I look at that thread, too. And one of the things that coming back to the cross here through this process does, it reminds me of the meal that He ate through the Passover, is reminding them of the bondage in Egypt and the Passover and the blood on the door. And just, again, it's bringing us back to kind of thread back through our history, our spiritual heritage, and just think of where we've come from, all the hope that we have, how all of our spiritual ancestors and our family have struggled, and they've documented their struggles for us so they can help us to learn from their mistakes and not be, I'm sure they were probably embarrassed and ashamed of them, but just all the things that can come to mind as we go through this experience. So I'd ask you to think, one, ask yourself the question, do you earnestly desire to come and participate in this return to the cross and this meal and this fellowship with Jesus every week? There is an element of it that it is just for us. We do it ourselves. Yet we're here together and we do it as a family as well. So I'd like you to just think about those elements as we prepare for Mike to come up and give us a prayer. And I'd challenge you this week to earnestly desire to return here next Sunday and meet Jesus at the cross.